Kurt Busch is out of the playoffs. Both he and his team announced this morning that they have withdrawn their playoff waiver request, which shakes up the playoff grid significantly heading into Daytona. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Big breaking news from earlier this morning. Before we get to it though, I want to encourage you all to stick around till the end of this video. NASCAR Camping World Truck Series driver Spencer Boyd joins the show to talk about a really cool program called Bucks for the Brave. Find out how you can nominate a hero in your life for the chance to win the hunting trip of a lifetime. We'll get to that at the end of the show, but first, Kurt Busch will not compete for the 2022 championship. Kurt Busch and his team, 2311 Racing, confirmed today that they have withdrawn their playoff waiver request. In other words, they are refusing the playoff waiver that NASCAR has granted them. Here's the full statement Kurt released. As much as I wanted and hoped to be able to get back in the number 45 car to make a playoff run with our team, it's still not the right time for me. In addition to not being cleared to return to racing, I know that I am not ready to be back in the car. I respect the sport of NASCAR, my fellow drivers and the fans too much to take up a playoff spot if I know I can't compete for a championship this season. The decision was not an easy one, but I know it is the right thing to do. I will continue to take time to heal and strengthen as I prepare to be back in the car, and will do all I can to help 2311 continue the success we have had this season. Kurt Busch has already missed the past 5 NASCAR Cup Series races due to concussion-like symptoms, an injury he sustained during a crash in qualifying at Pocono a few weeks back. He'd already announced he would miss Daytona this week, the final regular season race, but his status for the playoffs until today was still unknown. We'll talk in depth about how this shakes up the playoff grid in just a moment, but first I want to focus on Kurt Busch. I don't want to gloss over this. This sucks for Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch this season has been everything 2311 hoped he would be and more. He got to win at Kansas in the first half of the season. He has 5 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and only 20 starts. Driving a new car for a young second-year team that missed the playoffs in year 1. I don't know how you could have asked Kurt Busch to do any more than he's done this season. He earned that playoff spot. He earned a right to compete for the 2022 championship, and I think he had a great chance at making a deep playoff run until this injury. They haven't shut the door on the entire season. He may not compete for the championship, but it's not a foregone conclusion that he won't race again this year. I hope Kurt is cleared to get back behind the wheel of the race car sometime soon. If not this season, hopefully next season. I don't want to see 2022 be Kurt Busch's final NASCAR Cup Series year. He's a former series champion, a former Daytona 500 winner. He's a future Hall of Famer. I know life isn't fair, but I really hope Pocono was not the last we've seen of Kurt Busch behind the wheel of a NASCAR stock car. And I don't mean to put this pressure on him. Kurt Busch obviously wants to get back behind the wheel of the car. This is not what he wanted to see happen either, of course. I respect him putting his health first, relying on the expertise of doctors. I think he's playing this out smart. I just hope as a fan that we get to see the 2004 Series champion race at a high level once again. Now I'm going to talk about the playoff implications of this decision, but I did not want to gloss over what this means for Kurt Busch personally. Not an easy decision to announce this early that you won't compete for the series championship. You won't take up a spot that you deserved. NASCAR released their own statement this morning and explained what happens next now that Kurt Busch is no longer playoff eligible. Kurt Busch has managed this difficult situation like the champion that he is. Working closely with his doctors, every decision made has been in the best interest of his health, his competitors, and the sport. Kurt has NASCAR's full support as he continues to heal, and we look forward to seeing him return to the race car. 2311 Racing has informed NASCAR that it is withdrawing Kurt's medical waiver request. Per the NASCAR rulebook, a spot has been made available for the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. The number 45 car will continue to compete for the 2022 Owners' Championship. Yes, remember my video a couple days ago? I talked about 2 different brackets. There's the owner's points bracket and the driver's points bracket. This is the one we pay the most attention to, but in the Cup Series, typically they're the exact same. Like last year, Kyle Larson won the driver's championship, and because he drove a Hendrick Chevrolet, Hendrick also won the owner's championship. So they usually go hand in hand, but this year the 45 is going to be kind of playing both sides. Ty Gibbs will drive the 45 and try to elevate it in the owner's points, but neither Ty nor Kurt Busch will be eligible to win the Drivers' Championship or to earn points in the Drivers' bracket. Filling Kurt's spot in that Drivers' bracket is, again, per the NASCAR rulebook, the next highest eligible driver. I know many will suggest, oh, NASCAR is making up as they go along again. They're gaming the system. They're trying to give certain drivers an advantage over others. Nope, in this case, NASCAR got it exactly right. They are doing exactly what they're supposed to do per their own rule book. This is not making up rules as they go along. It's a difficult situation. It's a last-minute situation, but NASCAR, in my opinion, is handling this exactly as they're expected to. With Kurt Busch removing himself from the Drivers' Championship, there are now 2 spots available on points. Ryan Blaney is now in 15th place, and moving into 16th, the last guy in is Martin Truex Jr. Truex, of course, is 6th in the regular season standings. Doesn't have a win yet this year, but he's been very consistent. He actually leads the series with 7 stage wins. He's 5th in laps led at 455, so still very much a worthy driver, but up until today, he had not met the criteria necessary to qualify for the playoffs. So this series is all about wins now. Win and you're in. Truex hadn't been able to do that, so he was on the outside looking in no longer. Truex is in 16th going into the final regular season race at Daytona. So this is where I want to get to the bottom of exactly why Kurt Busch, 2311, why they made this decision. Was it just good sportsmanship, or was it perhaps also good for business? Look, I do respect Kurt Busch for not just taking up a valuable playoff spot that he knows he's not going to be able to use. However, we cannot overlook how this decision benefits Toyota more broadly. Martin Truex Jr.'s chances of making the playoffs just went up exponentially. Before this decision, Truex basically needed to win this weekend at Daytona, a track he's never won at before. He's never won a super speedway race. If not win, he had to somehow make up 25 points on Ryan Blaney and then still hope another driver lower in the standings didn't get the win instead. So Truex's chances coming into this weekend before this decision were looking pretty bleak. I would not have tagged him as one of the favorites going into this race. But now that Kurt Busch is out and Truex, for the time being, holds that final spot, as long as no one 17th or lower on the grid wins, Truex is locked in on points. I think Eric Jones is the next guy back, and he's like 200 points behind. He can't make all that up in 1 week. So Truex is locked in on points as long as there's no new winner. Even if there is a new winner from lower in points, Truex still has a chance to outrun Ryan Blaney and make up those 25 points. So while Truex is certainly in a stressful, difficult spot, his chances of making the playoffs now are way higher than they were, yesterday. Here's the thing, 2311 Racing is still going to compete for the Owners' Championship, which means at the end of the year, they will collect top 16 playoff payouts. Kurt Busch, the driver, won't collect, the payouts for finishing top 16 as a driver, but this doesn't really affect the team. 2311 is still going to make pretty much what they feel like they earned. If you're Toyota, though, now by adding Martin Truex Jr. potentially into the playoffs, while Joe Gibbs Racing's not going to get extra payout money because they're not in the Owners' Championship for that car, Truex at least can collect some of the drivers' payout for being in the top 16, and of course, you get the added exposure that comes with being a playoff driver for your sponsors like Bass Pro Shops and auto owners. If Kurt Busch wasn't going to make the playoffs anyways, it makes sense for Toyota to ensure a different Toyota driver gets in instead. Again, there's no guarantee Truex makes the playoffs, but his chances are now much higher than they were before this decision was made. So some good sportsmanship, sure, from Kurt Busch's side, but I could argue this is somewhat good for business if you're Toyota at least. At least this was all announced before Daytona. Imagine they didn't announce this today. Imagine they waited. Millions of fans tuning into NBC Saturday night, watching that race, believing that there's only one spot available. All the storylines, all the coverage, all the graphics highlighting that points battle between Truex and Blaney, talking about all the other potential new winners that could blow both of their situations up. Say then Chase Elliott wins that race. He's definitely one of the favorites. So we don't get a new winner, and Ryan Blaney locks up that final 16th spot. They have the playoff drivers pose for all the photos together, do the interviews, do the TV stuff that they usually do. And then suddenly, on Tuesday of next week, Kurt Busch announces he's withdrawing his playoff waiver request. NASCAR looks at its rulebook and says, well, if one driver's no longer eligible, we have to bump the next eligible guy in, and suddenly they're adding Martin Truex Jr. into the playoffs retroactively off the air and are trying to feed that information to fans over the course of next week going into the race at Darlington. It would just be a much sloppier, a much messier, a much more confusing situation than it already is. It would remind everyone of the silliness that happened back in 2013 when Brian France just created a 13th chase spot and added Jeff Gordon to the playoffs long after the checkered flag had flown at Richmond. This deal with Kurt Busch in 2311 may not be nearly as devious as that one was, but do you think the average NASCAR fan is going to see it that way? They're just going to see that Toyota dropped one of their drivers out to help another Toyota driver get in after the grid had already been set. It wouldn't have sat well with anyone. So I'm glad I think NASCAR probably forced them into making this decision this week. I'm sure NASCAR went to the doctors Kurt Busch has been working with. They went to Kurt himself. They went to 2311 and had a hard discussion. Do you think Kurt is going to race again this year or in the next 3 or 4 weeks? Sounds like the answer was probably no, or they were highly skeptical, which caused NASCAR to kind of put an ultimatum on them. Hey, you have to make a decision this week if you're going to use that waiver or not. I don't know that that's what happened. Perhaps 2311 just knows Kurt's, not going to race anytime soon, and they wanted to, help out their Toyota team. Maybe they have something in the works there. Maybe they want to give Truex a better shot making the playoffs, or anyone a better shot since they know Kurt's out. Maybe it was solely on the team. They decided to make the announcement this week out of sportsmanship. But I can't help but imagine NASCAR was at least heavily involved in those discussions. Again, I think everyone involved is making the right call here. It's a difficult situation. It's an unusual situation, but all things considered, I think everyone's handling it about as well as possible. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Before we go, I want to turn things over to Spencer Boyd so he can talk about Bucks for the Brave, a really awesome program I think you guys need to learn about. You can check out that top link down in the description to learn even more. But yeah, let's bring in Spencer Boyd, Camping World Truck Series driver.
I wanted to ask you about, I saw a piece in NASCAR Pole Position magazine that featured the Young Motorsports team, but also featured do you call him car chief or truck chief in your case, I guess, Cammy Lawrence. What's the terminology there?
Yeah, so for our deal, truck chief, Cammy's been a part of the 12 team starting last year at Daytona. So
yeah,
she was a part of the 12 teams win last year at Talladega. So hopefully I can do that for him here this year. I've been in victory lane there before, and Cammy works so hard, does a lot of work on the truck day to day at the shop, and then so busy at the track. So she's going 100 mile an hour, and also she's one of our lead welders. So she's got a lot of experience with 40 Industries. And really cool story coming from out west and being into drift cars. And I actually just got a dirt bike the other day, and she was like, hey, let me jump on it and ride it. And I'm like, okay, and she's like, yeah, I got a ton of experience on dirt bikes out west growing up in Arizona. So just cool, girl all around, like loves motorsports, jumps in there and works really hard, isn't afraid to get dirty. And we appreciate all she does for us. And as far as the article with 40 Industries, welding is not something that I'm really good at. She's actually given me some pointers. So it's something I've always wanted to get into. And when those new green welders showed up at the shop, she was the first to unwrap them and get to work.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, we love to feature everyone in NASCAR Pole Position in the Out of the Groove Weekly Viewers Guide. We love to feature people working those really interesting and very important jobs behind the scenes for different race teams like yours. So that's really awesome to hear a little bit about her story. Now, Spencer, the main reason I brought you in here today is because I want to talk to you about the amazing work you've been doing with the Bucks for the Brave program, which honors the men and women who have served the front lines of our armed forces, law enforcement, fire departments. You've been on the show to talk about this program before, which honors American heroes, but what can you tell us fans about this year's 2022 edition of the program?
Yeah, so like you said, I've been fortunate to be a part of it for a few years, and Record Rack Deerfeed puts on this program called Bucks for the Brave, and like you said, we're taking veterans, EMT, firemen out to southern Texas to go hunting for the buck of a lifetime, and I've been a part of it a few years. It's been a ton of fun. Obviously, promoting it on my race truck, 12 truck, is always a great time, and getting those guys and girls out to the racetrack. But behind the scenes, I think that's what people don't realize. It's really fun. And when we're down there in South Texas hunting, it's all inclusive, right? So any retired veteran, LEO, fireman is eligible for this. So you just got to nominate somebody. And if you have a hero in your life, you need to go nominate them. And especially if they're into the outdoors, even if they're not, there's so much that goes on from, the camaraderie of everyone hanging out around the campfire, really cool Texas country music, lobster, steak, fishing. We're all just having a great time. And then obviously what everyone's excited about is knocking down a huge whitetail and just fulfilling that dream. So once you cross the river over into Trinity Oaks, that ranch is just really fun. I guess I use that word a lot, but really it's just smiles all around, and just hearing all those stories from veterans and talking about what they've been through. And just when you get there, everyone's a stranger, right? So you kind of have that like first day of high school, like, oh, hey, he's cool, she's cool, like let's talk. And then after a couple days, it's like everyone's family. So kind of the nerves jump away, and that's kind of what I related to, is that first day of high school. You kind of find a couple people you get talking with and eating at their table, and then by the end of it, everyone's in one group, hanging out around the campfire, having a cold drink and enjoying a steak and just enjoying the moment. And for me, even these last few years, I've stayed in touch with a few guys on Facebook afterwards, and they follow my journey in NASCAR. So it really is a family atmosphere.
Great stuff. Yeah, that sounds like a really cool trip that takes place in mid-November. And you just mentioned it. Fans watching this right now can nominate a hero of their own. Just have to get those entries in by September 11th. 8 heroes will be selected to attend this once-in-a-lifetime hunting trip, event, spectacle. It sounds like a great time, Spencer. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing a little bit of your background with Bucks for the Brave and what it means to you. We appreciate you doing that.
Absolutely. Always fun.
Thanks again to Spencer for taking some time to tell us about Bucks for the Brave. Click that top link down in the description to nominate a hero of your own. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, an extra special thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys a lot. We'll be back again soon. Might have a video up tomorrow. It's a short week with Daytona being a Saturday night race, Xfinity tomorrow night, so we'll see. But if I don't see you guys tomorrow, you'll see me again very, very soon. Have a fantastic rest of your day, y'all. Thanks for watching.